We're really proud to help support this event with DEAM. For those who don't know what DEAM is, it's Disability Employment Awareness Month. They kicked it off yesterday in Calgary, and we're kicking it off today here in Edmonton.
Our goal is really to make sure that people have that minimum level of support that they need to kind of grow from, and really, especially on the employment side, help people get to where they can be part of their community, have more self-sufficiency to what they're able, and we are very passionate about that work.
I did have my life flipped upside down. There's going to be fastballs thrown at you that's going to make you adapt and change, and as humans, that's what we do. When I started being grateful for what I had, instead of being sad about what I lost, my whole world changed. The universe opened up its doors, led me to meet all the right people that I needed to meet in order to get REU Paralysis Recovery Center off the ground. And within the 5 years that we've been open, we have changed the lives of literally hundreds of Albertans living with disabilities.
For those of us with a disability, or especially those with suddenly having a disability, life is bitter because that's how we view it. Suddenly, I smelled something. My favorite food. But life could be great if you bite into that favorite food. Take a smell again. Imagine a life as your favorite food. In 2006, I became the first quadriplegic in Canada to earn a Bachelor of Education degree specializing in elementary because my favorite food smelled so good.
How do we create an inclusive space for everyone? I want us to maybe think about using the acronym IDEA, Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility, because I have also witnessed in the last few years the hierarchy within what we've called the DEI space, the D&I space. It's gone through a lot of changes, but accessibility doesn't always make the list. How do you lead with heart every single day? How do you have clumsy conversations? And think about a day in your life and where are there opportunities for change.
We very much focus and exclusively focus on changing lives through the dignity of a job and the power of work. We've gained a tremendous contract opportunity through our partner with the province of Alberta. It's called the Employee Inclusion Accelerator. We will now hire up to 6 dedicated team members that will go out and work with companies, teaching and encouraging and mentoring these wonderful corporations to hire team members with disabilities. So we're very, very excited for this project. Thank you and congratulations to Heather, who delivered that opportunity.
First up, let's start by welcoming to the stage the Assistant Deputy Minister of the Employment and Financial Services Division at Community and Social Services Ministry in Alberta. That is a tongue twister. I've had trouble reading that absolutely all morning, but that's his title. He's actually been in the Alberta Public Service for 21 years, and for the past 3 years, he's been serving in positions of Executive Director and Assistant Deputy Minister in Community and Social Services. His division serves over 100,000 income support clients and provides employment services to 60,000 Albertans each year. I'd like to bring up the Assistant Deputy Minister, Toby Schneider.
Hi everyone, apologies for that introduction. I didn't know they were going to send that bio. That's a stuffy bio that was meant for like this conference for IPAC in Toronto. And I'd like to do my own introduction. So I'm Toby. I oversee a lot of work that really helps Albertans that need some help. And our goal is really to make sure that people have that minimum level of support that they need to kind of grow from, and really, especially on the employment side, help people get to where they can be part of their community, have more self-sufficiency to what they're able, And we are very passionate about that work. We do have over 1,000 people in my division, and that is a goal we share. So that's my self-introduction, and I can't remember my title either, so don't worry if you don't have to. Thanks, Doug, for that introduction. I'm pleased today, on behalf of the Ministry of Community and Social Services and on behalf of my colleagues in government, to have this kickoff session. It's my honor to proclaim and recognize October as Disability Employment Awareness Month here in Alberta, where we highlight the talents and contributions of people with disabilities and what they bring to the workforce. And I have to say that for me, it's work, but it's also personal. I do have a brother who has autism. He has struggled with employment through his career. He's about in his early 60s now, and for the last several years he's actually had more secure employment, but I remember years it was very difficult to find employers that would take him on, and he's ready to work, he's reliable, and he wants to work, and he brings a smile and joy to coming to work, and it's just so, it's a much happier place for him and for our family and community that he's having more success with that, and it's very personal to me, this work. So as we continue to recover from the pandemic and Alberta's economic downturn, there is a need for ongoing employment supports, and it's crucial, particularly for groups that are hit the hardest. It's great that we're able to get together and acknowledge the hard work being done in this province and get people with disabilities working. The Ministry of Community and Social Services is committed to making sure vulnerable Albertans with disabilities, and Albertans facing barriers to employment are also able to benefit from our economic recovery. People with disabilities are an essential part of Alberta's workforce, and it's crucial that they are given the opportunities to earn a living while also gaining independence. Alberta's government has created more jobs and more opportunities for people with disabilities by developing and fostering partnerships with organizations across this province. We've also provided funding, grants, and continue to work with our community partners to ensure programs and services are accessible. Whether it is acknowledging the skills, successes, and accomplishments of Albertans with disabilities, or by volunteering your time to help promote and advocate for the participation of people with disabilities in the community, every Albertan should take the time to applaud their achievements. I'm thrilled to be here as part of Goodwill's Industries speaker series event this morning. Goodwill Industries of Alberta knows firsthand the importance of inclusive employment. Through their Career Connections team, they support people with disabilities in locating employment or volunteering opportunities in their communities. The power of a job and the dignity of a job on the power of a job and the dignity of a job on the lives of Albertans with disabilities cannot be understated. And that is exactly why creating a positive impact on the lives of Albertans with disabilities is so important. Today is a wonderful opportunity for Albertans across the province to not only build their existing knowledge of inclusive and supportive employment, but also learn, grow, and foster a deeper understanding about diversity and equity and disability and diversity. Albertans with disabilities still face barriers to employment, but each year DEAM provides an opportunity for employers, people with disabilities, service providers, and Albertans to come together to act in removing barriers and creating a more inclusive economy. Today's event is one of those opportunities, giving us all a chance to learn. Education surrounding employment inclusion within the job market for people with disabilities is incredibly important, and I am sure the speeches today will foster an environment of learning and growth. This October, I encourage you all to continue to attend Showcase DEAM events, participate in activities, and celebrate Albertans with disabilities in the workforce. As we continue to recover from the pandemic and economic downturn, we are striving to help all Albertans gain and return to meaningful employment. We believe that everyone, regardless of the barriers they face, should have the opportunity to build their skills and contribute to their communities. DEAM is the perfect time to celebrate and highlight the positive impact Albertans with disabilities have made to our economic recovery. And I encourage you to engage with the programs and services our wonderful service providers provide. Thank you to the DEAM Provincial Steering Committee for inviting us to this wonderful event. And thank you to Westbury Theatre for having us. Keep doing the great work you're doing to help Albertans with disabilities enter the workforce. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning, Goodwill. Well, I am so excited to be here, and when I was asked to speak at this event, immediately I was excited and honored to be able to speak to you guys about something that is so important. Disability Employment Awareness Month is something that's kind of new to me. I really didn't know it even existed. Like Doug said, I did have my life flipped upside down. You know, when you try to plan your life out when you're younger, you're going to have kids by this time, you're going to have this at this time, it never works out. So whoever's trying to plan your life out there, don't, because it's never going to work out. Something's going to come and you're going to get, you know, there's going to be fastballs thrown at you that's going to make you adapt and change. And as humans, that's what we do, is we adapt. That's why we've made it this long. And in this year of 2022, like, this is the future. And so if you have a disability, it's no longer seen as a burden. It's no longer seen as a disappointment. Although some people do see it that way. But what we're trying to do here today is change that. And what I'm trying to do with the rest of my life is change that and get rid of the stigma towards people with disabilities, because if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. Growing up here in Alberta with brown skin, I sure felt my fair share of discrimination growing up. And that's not something that a lot of people can say, but in my household, racism was something that we talked about all the time. And, you know, I was bullied, my siblings were bullied when we were younger, simply for being different. And now, as an adult in this time and age, your uniqueness is celebrated. I was just telling Dale backstage that, you know, I used to call myself the trifecta of discrimination. I'm a woman, I have brown skin, and a visible disability. Now, I call it win, win, win. That's what people want, let's give it to them. So when we talk about inclusion, what are we talking about? What does it actually mean? Inclusion means everybody is included in everything. Now, that's a very broad statement. It can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. But for your industry and for what Goodwill does, I can't think of a better word to describe. Everything Goodwill does is inclusion. I was talking to my mom a few weeks ago about this event, and she said that, did you know that since we were little, she's been donating to Goodwill our whole lives? When you grow out of clothes and stuff, everything that we would donate would always go to Goodwill. So I didn't even know that, but we've been supporting you guys from the very get-go. And I find that really awesome. And this is kind of the circle of life, me being able to come here and speak to you. So inclusion, I mean, you know, we can act on inclusion every single day in our lives, right? We can make sure that everybody feels included, and this starts when we're kids. When we're playing at recess, we're playing at the park, trying to make sure that everybody is included and everybody gets to play. We also, a big part of inclusion is accessibility. You can't play on a playground that's not accessible. You can't play on grass if your wheelchair doesn't go there. But I'm so happy to say that Edmonton actually has, I think, 5 accessible playgrounds around our city. And in Clairview with the Canadian Tire Jumpstart playground. My friends and I actually went to go play there a couple of years ago, and it was really fun. And I think as adults, we kind of forget how to play, but that's something that I urge all of you to do. Some homework for everybody is to really find the joy. What brings you joy? What makes you smile? What, when you think about it, brings that like smile to your face and that warm feeling inside of you? I invite you to go play. I invite you to take your children or your grandchildren or a niece or a nephew or a neighbor's kid and say, hey, let's go play. And they might be taken aback, like, whoa, what? Why does this adult want to play with me? But it's actually really fun. I take my nephews all the time. I have one niece, and she's a year and a half, almost 2, and I cannot wait until she's old enough to play with Barbies. I told my sister-in-law that I want to buy her the accessible Barbie house. Let me do that for her. This is how we create inclusion. It starts from the very young age. When children see me, I am a child magnet. Kids always just come running to me. And what often happens is, a child will come up to me and like touch my wheels or kind of say like, what is this? And I just say, oh, it's my wheelchair. But that's when the parent is like, no, don't ask any questions, don't say anything. And my response to the parent is, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt them. I'm not going to tell them all the gory details of how I was paralyzed, even though there aren't any. But I said to the parents, I would rather your child ask me and I tell them the truth than you go around the corner and tell them a lie. Because that's really what's going to happen. And by the child seeing their parent, who is their safe space, who is their hero, when the child sees that kind of reaction from the parent towards a person with a disability, that child automatically associates disability with fear. That's how the stigma starts. One of the ways how the stigma starts. So we got to stop that. Let kids ask the questions. If they're awkward, good. The more awkward, the better. In this day and age of 2022, we should welcome the awkward conversations. Race, ageism, ableism, all these things need to be talked about because the only way we get rid of it is when we talk about it. And when we talk about it, we take the power away from it too. So every time I get to tell my story, I shed a little bit of that burden that it has on me. And I also get to inspire others. Doug mentioned a little bit about my story, but I did feel severe pain in my low back. I was in Las Vegas when this happened, and it was on Friday the 13th. Can't make this stuff up. I felt the severe pain, and it lasted maybe a few minutes, and then I wasn't able to move my right leg. As I lay there in bed trying to move both my legs, only my left leg was moving. A couple of minutes later, it went prickly from my hip all the way to my toes in a whoosh motion, and I was left paralyzed from the waist down within 10 minutes. Being an X-ray tech, my critical thinking skills jumped into play. I took my pulse. I tried to do as many vitals as I could, try to figure out what's happening in my spinal cord. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. I hadn't even drank anything at that point. And I really, truly didn't know why this happened to me, and I wouldn't find that answer for 4 years. I asked myself that question for 4 years. Why me? What did I do to deserve this? Why am I sitting in this wheelchair? And as hard as it was, and trust me, it's really hard to live with a disability. But nothing in my life has been easy. Nothing. Especially anything worth having. So in 2016, that's when I found out my purpose, the reason I was paralyzed, was to open an activity-based training center here in Edmonton. I had to travel around to find this kind of therapy, and when I found it, my recovery skyrocketed. I now drive my car with my foot. I have hand controls just for safety, just in case you guys. My doctor knows, okay? I'm able to walk with a walker. I'm able to stand up to pull my pants up after I go to the bathroom. And for a lot of people, these are just mundane things that everybody takes for granted. Not me, though. Not these guys. What this journey has taught me is to adopt an attitude of gratitude. When I started being grateful for what I had, instead of being sad about what I lost, my whole world changed. The universe opened up its doors, led me to meet all the right people that I needed to meet in order to get REU Paralysis Recovery Center off the ground. And within the 5 years that we've been open, we've won a number of awards. We are at, I think, 280 clients. We have 13 staff members, and we have changed the lives of literally hundreds of Albertans living with disabilities. And I know that's something that you guys can relate to because you guys do the same thing in a different way. By being able to show people the potential that they have, by believing in people with disabilities, you really open the doors for them and you give them permission to live their lives. Here in Canada, people with disabilities are often thought of as a burden. This is often thought of as a burden. By this, I mean my wheelchair. But it's not. This is a tool. This allows me to get from point A to point B. This allows me to get out of my bed every day to do all the things that I do. So we need to reframe our thought process on disability and what it actually means. At REU, we've refused to talk about limitations. We will not ever ask anybody, tell me what you can't do. The medical system loves doing that. They love it. But why? Why do we constantly need to focus on the negative? When you're constantly focusing on all the things you can't do, what are you going to be thinking about? All the things you can't do. So I flip it. Anytime I see a doctor or anybody and they ask me, all right, tell me the things you can't do, I flip it on them. Nah, you tell me first, actually. What are all the things you can't do? Are you an Olympic swimmer? Are you a mountain climber? Do you snowboard? Do you do any of these things? So tell me all the things you can't do. And they're kind of shocked. But then you get it? If you keep talking about all the things you can't do you feel good about yourself? No. And like I said, this life is hard. You have to work at having a positive mentality, a positive mindset every single day. Every day. 7 days a week, 365. Doesn't matter if it's Christmas, doesn't matter if it's Easter, doesn't matter if it's your birthday, doesn't matter if you're hungover. You have to celebrate yourself. And for myself, I mean, people ask me all the time, don't you ever have a bad day? Why are you always in a good mood? I'm like, I don't say I have a bad day. I definitely have bad moments. I think we all do. And as humans, we're allowed to. Nothing is rainbow and sunshine all the time, right? So embrace it. Let yourself have those bad moments. For myself, I have rules for my pity parties. They are 2 hours. There's an alarm set on my phone for 2 hours. In that 2 hours, I can do whatever I want. Kick and scream, cry, eat chocolate, eat ice cream, whatever it is. I prefer boxing. Boxing is a great way to get some of that anger and frustration out. Hitting people is frowned upon, but hitting a bag, totally allowable, right? Make sure you're wearing gloves and have proper form, okay, when you do it. Especially as a wheelchair user, when your hands are your everything, make sure you're using proper form so you don't injure yourself. After that 2 hours is up, though, I have to pull my big girl's pants back up and say, okay, Bean, that's enough. Move forward now. And the reason I can do that is because I have so many people in my life, whether it be on social media or in real life, who have harder struggles than I do. And I think of them. I think of the people who would kill to have the mobility that I have, even though I want the mobility that other people have. So when I think of these things, I say in my head, just do it. Just do it. When I became grateful for what I had, one of the things that I will forever be grateful for and I will never, ever, ever take for granted again are my hands. My hands give me freedom. My hands have allowed me to live the life that I live. And it's not to say that people without hand function aren't living their best lives either. They are, and you're going to see pretty soon here what I'm talking about. But it helps you put things in perspective. So every day for the last, I think, 5 years, I've been writing in my journal 3 things that I'm grateful for, a positive affirmation, and 3 things that I'm open to receiving. When you wake up and you first think about things you're grateful for, it automatically puts you in a good mood, automatically. It also, once you've said all the generic things that we're grateful for, friends, family, these kinds of things, it forces you to look in your day to find, what am I going to be grateful for today? If you follow me on Instagram, you'll be able to see my gratitudes every day I post them. And today, I said I'm grateful for speaking opportunities like this. Because my goal is to change the world. And that's a lofty goal for one person. But I do believe one person can make a difference. And how I do that is this. If I get to change one person's mind and hear about people with disabilities, if I get to help one person truly believe in themselves here in this room today, then my job for today is done. We change the world one mind at a time. And every single one of you has the ability to and the possibility to change your lives and the lives of those in your circles too. It is not a far beyond goal to have. When they say reach for the stars so you land at the moon, we mean it. I mean, the moon isn't even the goal anymore. We're going to Mars, man. Right? So what is actually holding us back? Ourselves. I have big, huge, lofty goals. One of my goals is to have a private jet. It's going to be green with a phoenix up the tail, because the phoenix is the reused logo, and we are continually rising from the ashes. When I say this, people laugh at me. I'm like, man, the only thing stopping me is me. I'm holding myself back. If I say that I can't do it, then I'm not going to do it. But if I say I'm going to do it, what is stopping me? That's what I want you guys to think about for your lives and for the people that you serve. Think of their potential. Only see their potential. See that they are capable of so much more. And when disabilities happen to people or for people, it happens to the strong ones. It happens to certain people for a reason, because they are strong enough to handle it. They are strong enough to push through, wake up every single morning, be grateful for having your eyes open, because today 150,000 people didn't get to open their eyes today, but you did. That's something to be grateful for. When we start looking at our lives in that lens, we can only see good. There is so much negativity in our world, and mainstream media loves to pump that up, right? Same with socials and stuff. There's a lot of it out there. But if we keep our mind focused on the positive and the good out there, then we will share that. We will spread it, and we will grow it. There's a lot of good people doing a lot of good things out there. We just need to be louder. We need to be louder. So when you're thinking of your positive mindset, and how do you keep that positive mindset? How do you stay positive in this world where there's so much negativity and so much doom and gloom? Practice. You have to practice it every day. So I have a practice of gratitude that I do every single day that I spoke about. Find something that resonates with you. It doesn't have to be gratitude. You can do whatever you want. Honestly, one of the best ways that I have found to put a smile on my face is dancing. Whether you can dance or not, I don't care. That's not the question. If you can move your body, if you can nod your head, you can dance, right? Pick a song that puts a smile on your face. Pick an uplifting song. And if you don't have one, Energy by Disclosure is a great one. Write that one down. Put it on, 30 seconds. I guarantee you your smile's going to be on your face, your heart rate's going to be up, and you will be living. Too many of us just exist day to day because of the stresses of the world, because we're worrying about things that we can't control. But if we can switch that to be grateful, and if we can switch that to focus on the positives today, in this moment, we can really change our mindset. There's a lot of science behind this too. There's been studies done on positive mindset, positive thinking. It actually works. Sounds hokey pokey for sure, but it literally works, and I am living proof that it does. When we talk about inclusion, accessibility, all these key words that surround the disability world, we need to open it up, and we need to have those words surrounding the able-bodied world as well. Because everybody here is one step from joining this club. I didn't even have to take a step. It was a virus that paralyzed me. Right? And, you know, I'm also an ambassador for the Rick Hansen Foundation. And in one of their presentations, it really shocked. One of the things that really surprised me, because they ask, you know, do you know anybody with a disability? Do you know anybody who uses a wheelchair, who uses a cane, who uses a walker? And then they said, do you know anybody who wears glasses? How many people wear glasses? Guess what? You all have a disability. It's just been normalized. So it's time for this to be normalized. It's time for people with limb difference to be normalized. It's time for people who have any kind of disability to be normalized. Why are we still discriminating and segregating people who are different? A lot of that is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of something that's different than yourself. But the only thing that can get rid of fear is love and light. Fear is dark. Fear is ugly. Fear is dark. And so we can't escape it. We all face it. But you have to keep it at bay. And by doing certain personal development and positive mindset techniques every day, that's how we keep it at bay. And once we can push fear, I don't think we can completely push fear out of our lives. I think it will always be there because as humans, that's just how we are. That's how our thought process goes. And there are true things to be afraid of in this world, for sure. But it can't overtake our lives. It can't be the first thing we think of when we wake up, and it can't be the last thing we think of when we go to bed. If it is, you're going to live in that dark world. And I lived there for 3 or 4 months after this happened to me, after I gained my wheels. I lived in a very dark, dark place. I was mean. I was mean bean. And she's not a nice person. She's really mean, really ugly, hurtful to herself, hurtful to others. But that's not who I want to be. That's not who I want to be today. That's not who I want to be tomorrow. I want to be fun bean. I want to be me. But it took a long time for me to love myself as I am. It took a long time for me to say that, hey, being sitting is actually the same, or maybe if not better, than being standing. And I want you to think about that about yourselves too, whether you have a disability or not. What do you love about yourself? What are you so proud of about yourself that you can't wait to share it with everybody? Everybody has one thing that they are super, super proud of. So I really want you to think about that. And I want you to write it down, either today or when you get home. And I want you to put it somewhere where you're going to see it every single day. And I want you to remind yourself of the things that you're proud of, because that's going to put a smile on your face. That's going to show you that, hey, I have purpose. I'm here for a reason. All of us are. We're all here for a reason. If we think of the odds of each of us being born, trillions to one. So if you think of it that way, I mean, yes, there's 8 billion people on this planet right now, but you were born for a reason. You are put on this planet for a reason. What that reason is, I can't tell you. You have to find that out by yourself in your heart and in your brain and in your soul and in your spirit. But it can be done. And it starts by introspection, looking at yourself, loving yourself, having no shame about loving who you are, truly being accepting of your differences, of your flaws. We all say we have flaws. Are they flaws or are they differences? I choose to say they are differences. The words we speak, the words we think, say to ourselves in our head, all make a huge impact in how we talk about ourselves, in how we allow others to talk to us. So keep it positive. Is it easy? Hell no. Tell me something in life that is easy, right? When people tell me, I work out a lot, I do a lot of the things, and people tell me, well, that's hard. Well, my answer is, you need to choose your hard. Being fit is hard, being fat is hard, being rich is hard, being poor is hard, being healthy is hard, being sick is hard. Choose your hard. What are you going to do? Everything in this life is hard. Absolutely nothing is easy. And if it's easy, you're getting scammed. Because it's not, right? So let's just accept it. Let's put the work into ourselves to really see the potential in people, to really see the potential in ourselves, to love who we are, to love others. When you love yourself, you allow others to love you too. However you are, whether you see yourself as broken, whether you see yourself as whole, you allow people to love you or you allow people to hate you. It's really up to us. I don't want to go over time, but I'm going to leave you with one last thought from one of the men who writes a lot of the affirmations that I listen to. I have a Spotify playlist of positive affirmations that is my alarm clock. That's another little tidbit. Don't wake up to, don't wake up to that. If you wake up to that, you're going to be startled, and that's how you start your day. My alarm clock is positive affirmations. It wakes up, it's really loud, but it starts by telling me how awesome I am, how the world needs me, how the world is better with me in it. You hearing those words when you wake up really helps you keep that positive mindset and know that you do have a place in this world and that you're here for a reason. Sorry, so now let me leave you with the line. Leave who you were, love who you are, and look forward to who you will become. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, being Gill, if there's one thing I took away from it, I'm going to have to change my alarm clock.
Yeah.
Honestly, you talked about, we're going to do a little Q&A because I have some questions about her presentation, which was truly inspiring. You talked about going over limit. I could honestly listen to you for another couple of hours.
I could talk for hours and hours too.
You had a pretty significant journey.
Yeah.
Even in the last couple of years. What do you want others to take away from your journey or learn from your journey?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
That is a loaded question, I know.
One person can make a difference. Mental health and physical health go hand in hand. Don't take anything for granted. If you have mobility, use it. Because there's so many of us that would kill to have it. Don't take it for granted because you don't know when it's going to be taken away. I took these for granted for 30 years. Never again.
Your positivity is off the charts.
Thanks.
How do you remain so positive?
Well, like I said, it's a practice. I have to practice. I have to make sure that I'm positive. I have my gratitude journal. I write 3 things that I'm open to receiving, my positive affirmations. I listen to positive podcasts. I also listen to scary ones. Balance, right? I don't know. You just have to allow yourself to feel the feels. When you're feeling down and bad, feel it, but don't get stuck in it. That's the biggest thing.
As employers, as people, as community members, you talked about, putting limitations on people, not realizing you can think outside of the box, right? How do we remove those limitations? There's no right answer. I don't think there's an easy answer, but how do we, think outside that box?
I think it goes down to that person as an individual, each of you as individuals. For myself, what I had to do to really let go of my limitations, I stripped it all down. I literally got naked, sat in front of a full-length mirror. A bottle of wine may have been involved. And I looked at myself and in my eyes in the mirror. Have you ever done that? Have you ever sat so close to a mirror where you look inside your eyes? And I continued from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes, and I spoke out loud everything I hate about my body. Every single thing I hate about it. I cried and cried and cried as I spewed these words out. And once I stopped, I started from the bottom, and I went all the way back up about all the things I love about my body. And I chose to end on what I love about my body, because that's what has to stay in here. We can all find things to hate about ourselves. But when we find things to love about ourselves, that changes your outlook on yourself. When you can truly love yourself with your flaws and everything inside of you, it opens up that gateway for other people that you're interacting with. Now you will see all the things you love about this person, while they may see all the things they hate about themselves. And then you have that conversation with them. Invite them to do that same, not a trick, whatever. Invite them to do something that's going to help them see all the things that they love about themselves. And none of this was easy. I cried a lot during this, but it's necessary. You need to strip yourself down, and you need to really recognize that your body is a part of you, and you are in control of what's in here and what comes out of here.
One last question for you. You said you didn't know about Disability Employment Awareness Month. What does this month mean to you now?
Oh man, it means so much, right? When I was first paralyzed, I didn't know what I was going to do for work. I'm an x-ray tech. I worked in the cardiac cath lab. I can't do CPR from a wheelchair. I couldn't even sit up at that point. I had no idea. When I started looking for employment, there wasn't much out there. And I truly felt like I was a liability. People are going to see me as a burden. They're not going to want to hire me. But because I had that lens, that's what they saw. That's why I never got any employment and my path was different. I ended up opening my own business and stuff. But for many of my clients, many of the little kids that we work with, the teenagers and even the adults, seeing them being able to gain employment, 2 of them with Goodwill. Yep.
Is that a plug?
But seeing the opportunities that they have now because of DEAM, because of DEI, because of all of the spotlight that's been put on minorities since 2020, it really warms my heart because now this is how we're going to see true inclusion. Yeah, I love it.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Being Gill one last round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I have an assistant because the wheelchair and the hand. Thank you, my lovely assistant, Diana, and my partner. Thank you. Yes. Well, I want to change the direction a little bit to the taste of inclusion. Often, when people think of inclusion, we think of money and a bad taste in our mouth because we had to do so much to include people. But now I want to give you a twist. So let's do a group activity. So what is the true taste of inclusion? Close your eyes for a moment. Don't sleep on me, but close your eyes for a moment. Now, I want you to think of your favorite food. Put an image in your mind. I want you to take a deep breath. Can you smell it? Your favorite food. Smell it. Imagine it. Touch it. Now open your mouth and take a big bite out of it. And now I want you to open your eyes, but keep that taste, that image, and that smell in your mind fresh. And I apologize to those who are on diet. Next, please. So, my life before my disability, I thought of as plain. I had one thing in mind is that I'm going to live the dream. I'm going to live the life exactly how I planned, just like being. I am going to have a great life. And now I think about it, it's pretty plain. And what is it like when you have a disability? My lovely assistant. When you have a disability, is that you add layers to that plain cake. You add the cream, you add the juice, you add the strawberry. And that's how I perceive life now with a disability. Yummy. So next time, when you see in my slideshow, when you see food, I want you to all say, yummy. Let's do a practice. 1, 2, 3. Yummy. Thank you. So, having a disability, for those of you who don't, it really is bitter. Life becomes bitter. Perception becomes bitter. And living every day, the struggle becomes bitter. And most of us, and a lot of us out there, we live our whole life with a disability feeling bitter. I didn't know about that. I thought my life was going to be sweet when I was walking, when I was able-bodied, when I had hope and dream and a future already planned. And my life, just like being, didn't go as planned. I was about to start my 4th year education from the U of A. I decided to drive to BC for a quick vacation, and on my way back, driving on the Coca-Cola, my car went over a cliff. When my car flew and hit the first part of the cliff, I was ejected from the vehicle about 40 meters. There, I woke up at the U of A hospital a week later from a coma, and the doctor came and told me that I broke my C6-7, which is on my neck. I crushed my L3, which is on my back, lower back. I had 13 fractures on my right shoulder, broke my right wrist, crushed my left foot, and punctured my left lung. I went all out. And I didn't know what was happening because at that moment, I didn't know anybody who has a disability. All I saw is from a distance, some people in a wheelchair, some people who are not verbal, and some people needed a lot of help. But I didn't have any part of that in my life, so my life suddenly became bitter. And bitter it stayed for a few days. I cried, just like being. For those of us with a disability, or especially those with suddenly having a disability, life is bitter because that's how we view it. When you don't know about disability, that's how you view it. How my life changed is on the third day after I cried for so long. Suddenly, I smelled something. My favorite food. My grandma made for me. Fish cakes. I took a bite out of it. I remembered that taste. I closed my eyes and I remembered how it looked. I took another bite, I took another smell, and I imagined again, maybe life is not so bitter. Maybe life could be that favorite food. And then I remember my grandpa. My grandpa is a teacher. And that has been my goal. And then I thought, hey, maybe I can continue my goal. Even so many people told me, you can't because you're a quadriplegic. You can't do anything right now. And you have to be supported by someone else. And you are now having to take on all the money the taxpayer donated to you because you won't be able to work. I smelled my favorite food again. I remember what my favorite food looks like, and I bit into my favorite food. Maybe I can. So, sorry, can you go back one more image? So life with a disability, when you first imagine it, is chaos. Like this smashed up watermelon. It's not so yummy. But, go ahead. But, life could be great if you bite into that favorite food. Take a smell again and imagine a life as your favorite food. So I worked my ass off. I went back to university and I struggled. Most people's 8 o'clock classes, it's hard to get up. Well, I got up at 4 a.m. every morning because it takes me 3 hours to get ready in the morning. And being on DATS, well, I had to get ready early so I can be in school. I worked my ass off. And even then, at the university back then, after I finished almost all my courses except for the very last one where I had to do a practicum at a school, my faculty suddenly told me, hey, we've never done this before. Maybe you should change to another faculty. Shocker. I cried. And the next day, I smelled my favorite food. Yummy. And I said, hey, who the hell are you to tell me what to do? And I went back to university and I gathered all my support people and I made a presentation to them and I say, hey, this is how I'm gonna teach. 3 hours later, they found me a school. And unfortunately, that teacher didn't eat her favorite food that morning or for the rest of my practicum. And 2 weeks later, I stopped. I smelled my favorite food again. And I went back to university and I said, let's try again. And then I found a teacher who ate her favorite food every morning because that's when she saw me. She had a great mood. And in 2006, I became the first quadriplegic in Canada to earn a Bachelor of Education degree specializing in elementary because my favorite food smelled so good. Oh, can you go back one more? Oreo cookies. You forgot to say the magic word. Thank you. And that's what life feels like when I achieved my very first yummy. And then you got to do something else. So I said, hey, if I can do something yummy, like getting an education degree, what else can I do? So me and 40 other people who ate their favorite food that day and said, hey, let's go climb a mountain that no wheelchair has ever gone before and no path has ever been formed for the able-bodied people like yourselves. Let's climb Mountain Hauling, 8,000 feet. So we did. Was it easy? Definitely not. Did we feel bitter that morning? Definitely not. Yum, 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 yum. We all ate our favorite food because we thought and we believed disability. What is disability? When you have the imagination of your favorite food behind you, why can't I? Now I have a ice cream cake. On top of the mountain, ice cream cake. Yummy. And then when I have so many yummies, I gotta do something else that is even yummier, like downhill skiing. Was it hard? Oh, actually that's cross-country ski first. Was it definitely hard? Yeah, my hands are not working. Why not? Duct tape became my best friend. When my hands can't grab something, I just duct tape to it. Hockey tape works just as well. And downhill skiing, duct tape is even better than anything else. I just duct tape my hands to the outriggers. I duct tape my feet onto the ski, and I can go down 60 kilometers an hour down the hill and leave all your walkers behind. That's because, yum, 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 yum. Yummy. Because having a life with disability is like this platter of fruit. I have a choice. When people like yourselves are open-minded, are willing to try anything with me, yummy. Life can be yummy. And after you have so many yummy food in your life, what do? Well, you go kayaking 4 hours down the river, and I duct tape my hand to the paddle. I was so excited the first time when I went down. I paddled for 4 hours. My white legs burnt in the sun. And I paddled so hard, the next day, I couldn't even lift my head up to eat my breakfast. And I couldn't even lift my arm up to do anything. And next year, I went paddle the same river again. because life is so yummy. And just like Bean, she does boxing. Well, I play wheelchair rugby. I don't hit a bag. I get in my wheelchair and I hit another person. And it's legal. And like the mean being in a wheelchair, well, I can be pretty mean when I'm in a regular chair, but when I get into that rugby chair and I hit other people, afterward, I am the nicest person ever. If you ever want to try, you're welcome to try it every Saturday. And you get into that rugby chair, you can flip someone in their chair, and I get to hit the guys as hard as I want, flip them, and getting the ball from one end to the other end of the court is just a bonus. But having other sports, having tried other things in life, and having the society, a community supporting that is pretty yummy. It's like a sushi platter. It doesn't look very well to you sometimes. You know, yucky, raw fish. But if you try one piece of it, you may want to try the second piece. And life could be interesting with a disability. And being the Mighty Kuen works just as good. And that's how Mighty Kuen's born, by the way. And after you try so many cool things in life, I'm a geek, so I have to try comic books. And I became the first and the only female quadriplegic letter in the world right now. And working for DC Comics, they pay really well. And it's like a cup of chocolate, really, really yummy chocolate, is that life could be very good if our community is very inclusive and we support one another no matter what kind of ability you have. And then that's where my big dream came in. It's like, if I could do so many crazy things in life, why not do the impossible? Like wheeling on the Great Wall of China. Well, Rick Hansen, you all know that, did it. He's a Paralympian, paraplegic, so his hands and upper body works. I'm like, I'm not an athlete. My hands are not working. I was a little chubby back then. Why not? Let's try to wheel on the Great Wall. And Rick was really helpful to tell me all the tricks and where he did it. So I went and gave it a try. Was it easy? Oh my God. It was so easy. I burned so many blisters in my hand trying and training in Edmonton. I wheeled every hill under every condition, but I still wasn't prepared for the Great Wall of China because getting to the bottom of the Great Wall of China is 3 kilometers away. And it's definitely not all paved roads. And when you get on the bottom, which is on top of a mountain, by the way, you get the bottom of the Great Wall, you have to wheel about 500 meters. They made a little wheelchair ramp to go to the base of the wheelchair access. Then it's a 45-degree angle to go up a ramp to go to the base of the gun tower, which is not paved, it's like all rocks. And then my husband had to lift me over 3 steps to go up the gun tower, 2 steps down, and 8 steps up. I'm finally on the wall, and I can wheel. As you know, the wall is man-made. So then it's angled sideways a little bit and about a 25-degree up at the same time, and it's all stone. And you know how millions of people have been walking on it, so all the stone is all worn, but the cement holding the stone is not. I don't know about you, ever wheeled on any kind of wheels before, but going over cobblestone and the cement, it's not a flat surface. Plus, there's smog, and I'm on top of a mountain. It's goodness I went hiking in the mountains. I'm prepared, or I thought I was prepared. But it was still, I could not wheel more than 3 steps before I thought I had drained every ounce of my energy. But I am filled suddenly with the urge, with a power, and I had a whole community of people behind me, and my husband was screaming, "You can do this!" I started counting. I started screaming inside for myself to do this because what? Disability? Blech. I wasn't thinking about that. I'm thinking about getting to the top of the other gun tower. And of course, when I finally made it, I told my husband, let's do another gun tower. He begged me to stop. He's like, I don't think I can carry you all the way down the mountain if you do it. And when all the adrenaline melted away and when every ounce of my energy just suddenly disappeared, I couldn't even open my mouth to drink a sip of water because I had exhausted every ounce of energy in my body. But I'm Chinese. I have to take a picture at the end of the road, of course. But what does that taste like? Yummy. What else? Louder, please. Yummy. Next. Yummy. And one more. Yummy. No matter how hard life is, yummy. I think of my favorite food. I imagine it, and everything I do is that cherry on top. And what is a life as a quadriplegic really like? It's that perfect tasting watermelon. And if you really, really have a community behind you, having inclusion, having access to everything you wanted, your imagination can take that regular piece of watermelon and make it into an explosive watermelon cake. And that's what reality is that if our world supports people with all different abilities, everything can be yummy. And that comes to Goodwill. I knew I was a supporter of Goodwill just like being before. We used to drop off everything in our house when we were trying to downsize to Goodwill. But it wasn't until when I started at Goodwill, I realized all the work we do in the community, it's priceless. As a person that goes out to support people with different abilities looking for employment in the community, I realized there's a reason why Goodwill employs more than 20% of our overall employees are individuals with disability, because Goodwill sees individuals with disabilities as one and individuals in these little dim sum packages. They are individuals. They can be supported. They can be a great workforce if we provide them with an environment to allow them to grow. Sorry, Dale, I'm taking your notes and your speech information here. But that's exactly what Goodwill does, is that when we place them in the right environment, in the right table setting, when we give them the support, whether it's a fork, a knife, or chopsticks, when we see them as an individual that can grow, that can contribute, we place them in society as a great contributor. And that's where employment for individuals with different abilities really comes in, is that we can be a great addition to your workplace because we have lived a life. We went through the bitterness. We went through the hardship already. Imagine what we can give your company. Imagine what kind of ideas, what kind of hard work we can give your company if all you can do for us is give us the right place setting, the right pair of chopsticks or forks to allow us the opportunity to give back. Give us the opportunity to earn a living for ourselves, so that we don't take your tax dollars. And give us the opportunity to be independent, to support our family, to support ourselves. So individuals with disabilities, some people may see us playing like a hot dog, like a piece of ham, or that yucky vegetable like a carrot, or so plain like bowl of rice. Maybe you don't have that imagination of what we could become, but imagine if you give us the environment, we could become something cute, something strong, something inspirational like being, or someone crazy like me. And if you ever have questions about how we can be a contributor factor to your company, ask us. What you can do to enable us to grow in your company, ask us. What do we need to best work in your company? Ask us. I want to leave you a short story. Is that I used to work for an engineering firm, and some of you know the story. Is that when I worked at the engineering firm, they gotten someone to come in to do a workplace assessment for me. What would it be best for me to work in that company? And so they had 6 buildings then. And one of the things that they put push buttons. And they push buttons on the doors to go in, push buttons in the bathroom, was really awesome. So they decided they can't do it on every floor, so they decided on do it on the 2nd floor of all of their buildings. Very impressive. I worked on the 3rd floor. The long story short is, everyone, disability is not scary. Disability is not bitter. Look at this yummy chocolate cupcake. Remember that your favorite food in the beginning of my speech. Imagine that taste. Imagine that smell. Imagine what it looks like. Disability and hiring someone with disability. If you change your mindset and think of us as that favorite food of yours, we can grow. And disability is not so scary anymore. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the mighty Kuen. Kuen, you have a saying, "Why can't I?" Why is that saying so important?
Because we all always and need to encourage ourselves, like Bean's affirmations. If we constantly tell us, "Why can't I?" we give us the courage to want more in life than just what's present, and want more, to think outside the box, and to want more, to achieve more.
You talked about bitterness at different stages. How do you turn those negatives into positives?
Great question. So, close your eyes. Imagine your favorite food. Bite into it, smell it, and really enjoy. So every time something bitter comes along, close your eyes, bite into that food, imagine it, smell it. It will turn that bitterness into something wonderful.
Are you going to eat that cupcake? I think that's the big question, right?
Well, of course, because, you know, I'm a chocolate freak. And you've probably seen that in my presentation, is that I also want everybody to think of this cupcake every day when you have something bitter in your life.
You've done some remarkable things in your life, absolutely remarkable, and those remarkable things are going to continue into the future. Even, you know, being a mother, scaling the Great Wall of China, working at Goodwill. No, but how do we as people, like, look past people with disabilities? Like, how do we look past that and make that inclusive society?
The big thing is that don't look past disability, embrace it. It's just like when you have a different hair color, when you have different height on your heels, when you wear different pants, different shoes. Disability is just something that normal. It shouldn't be looked past. It should just be, hey, I'm wearing a brown jacket today. Hey, I'm using a wheelchair today. It's just something normal. And as I said, it should not be looked past, but should be embraced.
I think that's great notes. Ladies and gentlemen, the mighty Kuen.
I'm so excited to be here and have the opportunity to share a little bit about what I do, what I have been doing for the last 10 plus years. It's looked different because I was only going to keep this one up for a short time because that's really a bit frightening with my picture. But I do think the change that we're talking about today, the change that we want to see in the world that we live in and we operate in, can happen one conversation at a time, and it's through continual learning that we can get there. So like I said, I've been doing this work for over 10 years. A lot of the time in that 10 years, it was sat at my desk. It was just something that was a really big passion for me. When I started, it was to see more women in leadership that looked like me. I actually worked in a couple different organizations here in Edmonton. One of them was actually an engineering firm as well. And I would look up and I wouldn't see people who looked like me. And so I wanted to be part of that change. And so I'll share in my presentation the evolution that I've witnessed in terms of how do we create an inclusive space for everyone. And so I'm talking about one that involves women of color moving into leadership roles. But as I've spent time in this space, I want us to maybe think about using the acronym IDEA: inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, because I have also witnessed in the last few years the hierarchy within what we've called the DEI space, the D&I space. It's gone through a lot of changes, but accessibility doesn't always make the list. So before I talk about building knowledge and how we need to ground ourselves in common knowledge, I just want to do a quick acknowledgement of the land that we are on today, Treaty 6 territory. And very similar to how I'm going to share knowledge with you, that's how I learn and get to understand more about truth and reconciliation. So you'll see up here, 6 books. And I've been on a journey for the last 2 years reading about Indigenous people, their struggles, what they have gone through, and really grounding myself in a new learning, because I think back to when I was a child here in Edmonton and how Indigenous people were talked about, how that was my frame of reference. And so I want to create that change. So I want us all to think about how we can build upon that knowledge. And I definitely recommend all of these books. I started with From the Ashes by Jesse Thistle. It's a story of his journey and growing up Métis, having a really hard childhood. But now, hard childhood. He was homeless for 11 years, came out of that and is now a professor at York University. So each of these books has their own story, but I think it is part of my journey as I learn to acknowledge the land that we live on. So how do we start to build this knowledge? I think it's incumbent upon organizations, obviously, to understand this, how it impacts their business, how they need to think differently. It's not about adding another priority to the long list of activities that organizations do on a day-to-day basis. The busyness that we all face inside of organizations, there's always something to do. I think that diversity and inclusion really is about creating a lens in which we see the world through. It's no surprise that the last 2 years have taught us the continued complexity that we have in our world. It's not only within our organizations, but it's in the world around us. We probably all had moments during the pandemic where we just really didn't know what was going to come next. And so I think we might be a little bit on the outside of the conversation now. Part of that is that we're here together, which is really, really exciting. But that hasn't always been the case for the last 2 years. So we see the complexities from the pandemic, but we also see organizations becoming more complex in how they want to succeed as a business. So we can't leave behind the need to create an organization that's inclusive, that is actually thinking about all the people inside the organization, not just the majority. The other thing that I want to bring to your attention is this conversation continues to come up day after day after day. These are just some headlines within the last 2 years that really talk to the complexity that I just mentioned, and the conversations and the potential challenges that employees bring inside the organization, where they may not be able to show up and do their best work because they're thinking about the impacts of the pandemic on their community. They're thinking about the conversations that people might be having. The last one there, we witnessed the passing of the Queen, but also this conversation of what does it mean for colonization for Canada? And so I raise this for us to think about as we get to and move towards a place of inclusion. We have to be able to create the space to have conversations, one conversation at a time. If we aren't having those conversations, if we're not asking the questions, I love that reminder. If we're just going to go about our day and do things the same way that we've always done them, then the status quo remains. And I think we can all say that we're not happy with the current status quo. The other side of this too is to feel left out. And really, we've all probably had a story or two or many where we felt left out, that we don't feel that sense of inclusion. And this is truly a human problem. And so if we're not putting that at the forefront of our strategies, if we're not actually embedding this in why we want our organization to succeed. I've mentioned, I've worked in a few different organizations. I've heard the term, we put people first. People are our most important priority, but then I see a lot of examples that don't necessarily align to that statement. So we have to think about how people are feeling as well in creating that sense of belonging. I think this, okay, there we go. So the other thing too here, we can go, yeah, there's so many conversations about, well, we've got to think about the impacts on this community, and we've got to think about the impacts on that community, and how can I do all of this work? How can I be there for every single community? Well, I can tell you that when we get to the other side, when we get to a place of inclusion, people are going to show up and they're going to be able to do their best work. And I also think that the stories of progress tell us how important it is for us to continue to move in this direction. So there's a few examples up here. The one, I suppose, that's my favorite, and maybe most relevant for our conversation this morning. How many people have seen the movie Coda? 1, 2. I realize every time I ask this question, not a lot of hands go up because it's only available on Apple TV, so you have to have a subscription. But you can sign up for a 30-day free subscription and watch the film. And if you have the opportunity, I really encourage you to do so, because it did win the Best Picture in this year. And it's about a family, 2 parents and 2 kids. The parents are deaf, as is one of the children. And so the one that can hear becomes the translator for the family through conversations in their small fishing village. But the point of me sharing this is they fought really hard when they cast this film to actually have the 3 individuals who were deaf actually be deaf actors. And it's 2022. They probably filmed it in 2021, but we still don't necessarily think about the realities of who we have access to, who can we bring into organizations, who are the people who can do these jobs, and we've got to challenge the status quo. Bean told us the example of, wearing glasses is a disability, yet it has been so normalized. Yet in 2021, I think, maybe it was this year, when Encanto came out, and the main character wore glasses, that meant so much to children to see someone in that role. And so representation matters. And so obviously we're all here today to say, how can we create a space where we can have people with disabilities present inside of our organizations, making up like a quarter of our population, both visible and invisible disabilities, yet that representation is not equivalent inside of many organizations. So we all want to have that sense of belonging. We all want to know we are contributing to our highest potential. And I think about that every single day. I don't know the answer to every possible situation, but again, I'll have the conversation and figure out what are the connections that we need to make. How can we create the understanding to allow everyone to achieve their highest potential? One strategy that I think is really effective inside of organizations when we think about creating this inclusive space, this space where everyone can show up and be reach their highest potential, is leading with heart. And I want to leave you with some ideas in terms of what it means for you as an individual, what it means for the leaders inside your organizations, and truthfully, you're all leaders in the work that you do every single day. We don't have enough time for me to go into my other belief, but I think everyone is a leader, and I think you all have impact. It has nothing to do with your title. It has to do with your passion and how connected you are to creating change. So leading with heart. So HEART is an acronym. H is for humility. E is for empathy. A is for authenticity. R is for resiliency, and curiosity makes up the HEART acronym. I created this with a few other practitioners who do similar work to myself. And we wanted something that people would remember. There's a lot of leadership traits that are out there that I think are really important. And so we've tried our best to weave them into this acronym. But if we're going to show up and be able to do our best work, we have to do so with humility, because we don't know everything. We know everything about our own lived experience, but we won't know about someone else's until we sit down and we have a conversation with them and understand how we can help create a change that's going to make them reach their highest potential. I think we have sort of a broken system in terms of how we've thought about leadership inside of organizations, and that we have to know all the answers. We have to be right, but I don't think that's the new way that's going to move us forward. It's going to be that of us showing up with humility and removing ego from our conversations. When we think about empathy, I don't know how many people are familiar with Brené Brown, but she really has talked a lot about empathy and how we need to have that human connection with one another. And if we don't understand people's circumstances, we're not going to be able to have the empathy to, again, get to the best possible solution. And so that emotion that we feel, we are all human, needs to show up in the workplace as well. Authenticity is an interesting one, potentially, as you see this list. But for me, it's showing up in our truest form. It's sharing who we are. I'll tell a little funny story. I mentioned I've worked in a couple different organizations before I started my own business, and they were in the corporate world. And I unknowingly started showing up in the uniform, wearing the black pants, wearing the suit jacket, wearing the fancy shoes, and kind of existing in a sea of sameness, because I observed that as being what success looked like. Fast forward to, my enlightenment and thinking about how I want to show up in this world, and realizing I love bright colors. I want to show my personality as I show up to work. I want to be my authentic self. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to think about, how am I showing up in my most authentic self? And the story is, I was presenting to a room of pretty senior leaders, and I knew they were all going to be wearing suit jackets and their dress shoes and all of the uniform. And I thought for a moment, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't wear my jeans today. And I mean, that was like an upgrade, because I've been wearing Lululemon leggings for the last 2 years working from home. But I said, no, I'm going to wear my jeans. I'm going to wear these shoes, for if anyone can see them, they're white sneakers with rainbow laces. And I'm going to wear my fun floral blazer with all the colors. And I told them that. I said, I'm not going to show up in this room and not be my authentic self. And so that's part of being an inclusive leader, because you can role model to others and let them show up as their authentic self as well. Resiliency. This shows up in a couple different forms, but I will tell you, this work is hard. And not every single day do we wake up and we're like, well, I'm going to have to take some notes from being on the gratitude. But we don't win every conversation that we enter into. And maybe we shouldn't think about it as winning and losing, but we might walk away and go, I thought that change was going to be easy to implement inside my organization, but I just got told no by this team and this team and this team. And so resiliency to me is knowing that you might face those challenges, but what's the pivot? What's the direction that you can change slightly and go and ask someone else who can help champion the work that you want to get done inside your organization? When I worked in the engineering firm, I led diversity and inclusion across the globe. And I thought, okay, they're ready. They want to create this change. we are going to start to implement policies and practices that are going to be more inclusive to make sure that we are bringing in diverse candidates, that we are going to start to see a representation of our employees to the clients that we serve. There was a policy that we wanted to change to make sure that every job was going to be posted so that we could at least ensure people knew about these opportunities, because past practice has been, oh, I know someone who can fill that job. I'm just going to put them into it. So I don't know. I think it sort of makes sense to create that change to make sure that we're trying to reach the largest number of potential candidates. There's other strategies that go into making sure that we are thinking about the accessibility of those job postings. But for this specific example, it took 1 year for that change to be implemented because it had to go through approvals and wording, and legal had to sign off, and all of these things. And so resiliency is something that we have to know is part of this work. Even though we want it change to happen overnight, it doesn't always. And curiosity, pulling in the T to create heart, is my favorite because I'm still learning. I don't know everything. My journey around accessibility has only truly started to happen in the last year. I put on a conference recently, and one of our keynote speakers is also a wheelchair user. She says, I'm a disabled person. She lost her ability to walk in her 20s as well. And she said, look around the room that we were in the conference room. And by the way, just fun fact, we worked so hard with the hotel. We said we need a ramp. We have someone who's coming in, who's going to need to use it. You would have been mortified at what they put out to try to get Christine up onto the stage, our speaker. Yeah, it was probably 45 degrees. It was terrible. And so it is still 2021, and we don't have all these solutions in place. And so anyways, the story is my curiosity and my learning. And Christine, our speaker, said, look around this room. Where are there things that we need to change? And I sat there and I thought, I don't know. I think maybe the tables are too close together. But that, and the ramp, because that was an obvious one, because she wasn't able to use it. The whole room is carpeted. That's not easy for someone in a wheelchair. And I said, oh yeah, when I go to the airport and I'm trying to wheel my luggage down the corridor and then I hit carpet, it becomes really hard. Oh, wheels don't really work well on carpet. Okay, I've now brought that into my knowledge. So a really small example for me, but that's my journey. That's my journey in curiosity, because I don't have that lived experience. And so I want to sit on the side of bringing that into my knowledge and into my awareness as an advocate for this work, as I try to make the connections to those who are doing the really good work to help amplify the voices of those that may not have the opportunity to have their voice heard as loud as others. So a few things for us to think about in terms of these, and I kind of walked through it, but I want you to think about what actions you can put into action, which of these traits you can put into action today. Can you take this back to your organization and have a conversation about how these might be showing up inside your organization? What are you holding leaders accountable to? At the end of the day, the people in the highest positions of power are making the final decisions on, are we going to lean into inclusion? Are we going to help people think about those yummy moments that inclusion truly does create a better world for everyone? So how do we start to move forward? There are a lot of ways that we can. And so when I talk about this, I want you to think about your authentic self and how this resonates with you. You may not be able to action all of these tomorrow, but I hope there's something in here that you can take back as you think about how are we building our own diversity and inclusion strategies? How are we embedding it inside the organization not having it be something that's additive, that if our goal is to grow the business, how are we going to do that in an inclusive way? So I'd mentioned Brene Brown already, but she says, and this just sort of goes to how are you showing up in the work that you do every single day, because it is indeed the one thing that we have control over. True belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our own level of self-acceptance. So whether or not that's a teachable moment for you, it can be a teachable moment inside your organizations in creating change agents, because I do think it is the collective of people doing small things within their control that will continue to lead us down a path of creating a more inclusive world. So here's some tools, here's some things that you can think about as you build strategy, as you think about how you show up in this space. It's about getting uncomfortable. Again, I don't know everything, so I'm going to be uncomfortable as I try to bring in new knowledge, new learning, new awareness. I was reflecting, actually. I don't know why I want to tell this story, but I'll tell it. It's been several years since the 94 calls to action was released. The report was released for us to see and read. And so what, it's been 7 years. We've probably started to do land acknowledgements in the last couple of years. But I was reflecting on Friday for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, the second one we've had, and the number of people I saw wearing orange shirts. And reflecting on the number of people that participated in walks and in community events, and the conversations. I have 2 children, the conversations that they had in school. And I went and I thought, okay, maybe sometimes I sit on the side of saying we aren't doing enough, but change is happening. Change is slowly happening. So I think about that. Maybe I'll get this question from Doug in terms of DEAM, but that's the work that needs to be done. We need to continue to emphasize this year over year, and then we'll start to get that momentum. Change will start to happen. So get uncomfortable, listen to understand, use inclusive language. This is actually really interesting one. So certainly we can try to start using gender neutral language. We can make sure that we start to think about inclusive language when we say the term guys, for example. But what about manpower or manhole or a lot of gendered terms in our society, and trying to unlearn those and relearn maybe a more inclusive way of saying, hey everyone, instead of hey guys. Saying maintenance hole instead of manhole, manpower, workforce. There's different words that we can pull on, and if we start to redo and relearn more inclusive language, then more people will feel included. Understand the intersections. So Bean shared her story with us as a woman of color, wheelchair user. Those are 3 intersections in her identity. And sometimes, and I actually can speak to the data, I said when I started this work, it was around seeing more women in leadership that look like me. There has been advances for women in leadership, but if we look at the numbers, it's been for white women. It hasn't been for women of color, let alone women of color with disabilities. And so we have to spend the time to understand those intersections. And it might take us a little bit longer because we have to get to know different people's lived experience. But again, it helps to create a more inclusive world where we aren't leaving someone behind. Engage in allyship. There are so many ways for us to show up and be advocates in our own way. How do we listen? How do we learn? How do we understand and correct our own biases? We all have bias. It's the way our brains work. We have to do We can't fully eliminate bias, but we can interrupt bias. And so how do we bring that into our conscious awareness? For me, when making a hiring decision, I will want to potentially hire the woman because I want to see more women in leadership. But is that the best person for the job? And so I think about that in terms of people with disabilities. And I've heard a few stories actually during COVID where we, existed maybe a bit more in a virtual world, and people would do interviews, potentially get the job, and then as they're looking to onboard, the person would say, I just want to make sure your building's accessible because I'm a wheelchair user. And all of a sudden, they don't have the job anymore because they were sitting in front of their computer during COVID and doing the interview. So what changed? Very should that matter? And so I'm also conscious as I'm saying this, I'm using a very common example of what we think about, or what I've thought about, I should say, when thinking about disabilities. There are so many different components that we need to acknowledge, and this is the work that organizations have to do to build that knowledge, because I don't think they know. I just don't think they think about it, because I talked about that hierarchy. Diversity. Okay, we know we have underrepresentations of women, visible minorities inside of our organization, Indigenous people. What are we doing to create that change? We know we want to create an inclusive environment, so we want to create that sense of belonging. But what are we doing? We want equitable practices, so we make sure that we're hiring the best people for the job. But what are we doing in terms of accessibility? And so, here's the goal for next year, is that there's more people in this room to hear these conversations, more allies in this space so that they're on this journey with us. So I want to share a quick example, and then I'll wrap up in case there's any questions. So how many people know who Lizzo is? Okay. I love asking this question because I sometimes, again, I'm like, oh, of course everyone knows who Lizzo is. No, Erin, not everyone knows who Lizzo is. So Lizzo's a pop artist. She's actually been in the news recently for playing a 200-year-old flute, but we won't unpack that. If you're curious, look it up, because there's some undertones of racism in that story, but we don't have enough time to go into it today. Anyways, Lizzo released a song in June, and the disability community came out and said, hold on, there's a term in there that you use that is actually really derogatory. We don't like that word being used. And I will give you, because I'm not going to say the word, it's on the screen if you can see it. I don't want to repeat it, but it's more commonly used in the UK and Australia. So I want to give that context, because I actually don't think it is probably part of our everyday language, but if it is, it's maybe an idea of thinking about more inclusive language. So this goes out on Twitter. Hey, Lizzo, just wanted to let you know. And then, of course, we live in the world that we live in, and everyone goes, yep, it's time, let's cancel Lizzo. But the disability community came back and said, no, we don't want to cancel Lizzo. We love what she stands for, but we want to create the knowledge and awareness that word just really isn't something we want continued to be said and shared. So Lizzo comes back. She issues an apology, and she rewrites, re-records, and re-releases the song within 24 hours. And she said, thank you for helping me learn. I think the most important part here, and what I'll end on, is what Ali Henny said. Lizzo engaged in casual and unintentional ableism and literally rewrote, re-recorded, and re-released an entire song overnight to rectify the situation. She even managed to write a decent apology to boot. I don't want to hear any more about how your school, church, workplace, city government, nonprofit, corporation, or other institution can't construct and follow through with a plan to combat racism. I think that we can add a lot of isms in that statement and think about what this means for ableism as well. And change can happen, especially when we have change agents who are willing to do the work. So moving forward, I encourage you to think about the small actions that you can take. How do you lead with heart every single day? How do you have clumsy conversations? Again, we don't have it all figured out, but through those conversations, we can sure start to create a pathway forward. And think about a day in your life and where are there opportunities for change. One more quote from me, and then I'm done. This is Sonia Renee Taylor. She says, "We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all humanity and nature. So I hope that we can all move forward together in stitching that new garment." Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Erin Davis.
Thank you.
I won't press you on that question just yet. I had an unfair advantage. One of the reasons why I didn't do a land acknowledgement at the start was because I saw your slide deck at the start.
Yeah.
So I knew you were actually going to be touching on that subject. You know, the last couple of days, especially with National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, very important. You know, it's more about reflection and learning more than anything
Absolutely.
else. Instead of, say, for example, myself going up and speaking out of turn and telling people what to do. How do we look at reflecting and learning just as people?
I think that we figure out what feels authentic to us, and quite often I share resources. I have like the longest list of Netflix shows that people can watch if that's what sort of like what you do in the evenings, or podcasts or books. That's why I share my reading list. I think that we all have access to information. Like, whatever our thoughts are in Google, there's so much information out there at our fingertips. And so we can learn and we can understand the translation of, it's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, but what am I doing in this? And then that becomes your land acknowledgement the next time you're in a meeting. And so I really encourage people to move beyond sort of the programmed language that we are on Treaty 6 territory, Métis 4 nation, and really start to think about how are you personally showing up and what's your pathway towards reconciliation.
You also spoke about clumsy conversations. How do we even open those conversations?
Really good question. So something I didn't have in my slide deck, but I often share in rooms is how do we set the tone for these conversations? How do we set expectations? How do we create brave spaces saying, it's okay to fail. It's okay to say the wrong thing because I've got you. And I'm not gonna be like, don't ever say that again. I'm gonna say, can I give you some feedback? And if you're not willing and ready to listen, that's okay. But we're all human, we're gonna mess up. Like, everyone talks about this. And so I don't think, I wouldn't have had it in this deck, but quite often I've talked about blind spots. And then I've had a bit of an internal reflection of like, well, that's not really probably a great way to talk about it. So I now say gaps in knowledge. And so I try to share my examples with the world, but do it with one person, sit down and say, let's talk about this uncomfortable conversation. Let's, talk about the death of the Queen and what that means on colonization, if that's something that you're curious about. So create the safety to have that conversation, and once you do it once, then you know that you can do it again.
If you didn't notice, there was actually Cree language on your decks as well, right?
Yeah.
How has your journey just in life created your goals going forward in helping other people and other organizations?
Well, that's a really good question. I think when I got to the realization that I can't fix everything, that I would make a goal of what's within my control. And so I do think about that a lot. And I think about continuing to grow my network and my connections. It's another way to think about an action you can take is how are you building a diverse network and how are you bringing in new knowledge? And so I'm constantly sort of reflecting on that within my own personal goals and saying, okay, I've taken on this new knowledge, I've connected with these new people. Well, who else? Who's next? How am I going to expand that?
Final question for
Okay.
you. I won't keep you on the spot too much longer. How do we change the status quo?
We change the status quo by understanding what we're passionate about and operating from that place. And so I think it's by asking questions and saying, why are we doing it that way? And I think that's, if I'm going to be like honest and truthful, which I usually am, I asked a lot of questions in the organizations I used to work in. And then I kind of felt like my voice wasn't being heard and my ideas weren't being taken into consideration. And so I always said, it's these organizations' loss if I ever leave. And so I own my own business now. And I think that truthfully is part of my journey, that I wasn't able to ask those questions. You know, I was able to like say them out loud at the table, but no one really acknowledged them. No one really had the conversation. And so it's finding the people inside the organization that are going to listen to those questions and say, why are we always doing it this way? There's got to be a better way. And I think for me, as I reflect over my career too, I've always sort of thought, yeah, that's an okay way of doing it, but I think there's a better way. So when we do it next time, how can we do it better?
Very insightful. Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely Erin Davis.
Well, my name is Michael Carsmaker, and I am 37 years old, and I was born 3 months premature. And when I was born, the doctor said to my mom, just so you know, you're not going to get a live baby because we don't think this baby's going to live, just so you know. And my mom was bleeding out, and it was not a good situation. So when I was born and I was crying, the doctor said, oh my goodness, we have a live baby. And so then the doctors came and rushed in, and they said, we need help here. We got a live baby here. And then the doctor said to my mom, you know what? Your son is going to be a fighter, and he's going to fight his entire life, but he's going to do well because he's a fighter. So I this morning has been wonderful. I just want to thank the speakers so much. You've inspired me. You have a lot of thoughts going through my brain. So thank you guys very much for what you are doing and what you can continue to do. Thank you. Now I want to introduce a friend, a mentor, someone who I really care a lot about. He is a great leader. He has been with Goodwill for 10 years. He is caring. He is compassionate. He is passionate. And he just doesn't talk the talk. He walks the walk. And I just want to tell a quick story. I'm working for Goodwill for less than a week. And I was at my desk, and Dale comes by and says, "Hi, Michael. How's it going? I hear you're doing a great job. Keep it up." And he left to do his duties. And I had to think, what just happened here? Here is the president and CEO of a company who when I picture presidents and CEOs, I picture them, on the 200th floor with security guards and, or stormtroopers or something. And here is the president and CEO coming. First, he knows my name. Two, he talks to me, and I thought, wow. From that day on, I thought, you know what? I will run through a wall for that man. So, without further ado, let me introduce to you the amazing, the president and CEO of Goodwill Industries of Alberta, Dale Monaghan.
If you, is this on? Check, check. If you can give that to Bean, if you don't mind, or you can decide. The reason I wanted to give the clicker to Bean is we heard about that everybody has unique abilities and that eyesight can be a disability. So I didn't have my contacts in here this morning. I wouldn't be able to see the length of my arm. But the fact that it is very dark up here, bright out there, I can't read anything anyway on these cards. So, but in appreciating that we all have unique abilities, I was thinking, how do I hold a mic, speaking cards, and the little thing that advances the slides? So I thought, well, I could give it to Bean, my good friend Bean over there. Sophie, you're in the room here, I think, our incredible director of people and culture. She always reminds me of head of HR, what you can and cannot say and do. So when I look over your way at a very pretty person and wink, Sophie, I'm not winking for reasons of inappropriateness. She's going to advance the slides. And today I can get away with winking at Bean as a result. Well, I don't know where to go from here. I wasn't aware that Michael, my good friend and my mentor, was going to introduce me. So I'm a little thrown back. I also realized that I'm the last speaker between you and lunch, and we've been talking about food so much. I'm a little worried that some of you hungry souls might be a little hungrier than usual. So looking forward to sharing with you some things. We talked about food and fish cakes, Mighty Quinn. I'll never think differently or the same about challenges in the future. I just have to close my eyes and think of my favorite food. My favorite food is fried oysters on toast. Why fried oysters? Does anyone like fried oysters on toast? Do you, Quinn? Right on? A couple do? Okay, why? The year was 1942 in the Pacific Ocean, and there were 800 sailors on Christmas Eve in the theater of war in the Pacific Ocean on the HCMS Uganda, a battle cruiser just below a battleship in terms of size, so a big ship doing some important things in the ocean. And on that battle cruiser was again 800 seamen. I don't know if seaman's the right word, sea person. It might be the more appropriate term. Or we'll just say sailor, 800 sailors. It was Christmas Eve, and they had nothing for Christmas dinner but oysters. And somebody decided if you put them on toast and had some rum and some other things, it might be a good evening. So they had a great Christmas dinner of oysters on toast in the Pacific Ocean, somewhere in the dark between Asia and North America, and that was that evening. And why is that so special to me? One of those sailors was my grandpa. And this is the 80th anniversary. I promised myself I wouldn't do this. Michael, you got me all flustered starting here. This is the 80th anniversary. Our family gathers every Saturday before Christmas, no matter where we are. And we sing Christmas carols, celebrate the season, and we eat oysters on toast in celebration of Grandpa. So that's my favorite food. Quinn, thanks very much for the opportunity to talk about that. I have a new good friend right here. Haven't had the pleasure of meeting, but I'm going to make life very difficult for him. He's been doing a great job videoing the speakers. I was going to go way over there and hand the thing to Quinn. Then I was going to go way over here and talk to Michael about something, but we had that pleasure of interaction. But I want you, so here we go. I'm going to make life difficult for my friend here. Michael, every day at Goodwill, I always ask you, how are you doing? What's your answer?
Peachy.
Peachy. Look at that. In the theme of food, we're covering peachy. We'll talk about a little bit my story a little bit. It threads well into some of the things we've talked about. Then I want to speak about or share a couple things, reflection on our wonderful speakers. I feel very overwhelmed following those three incredible speakers. So one of the things I've learned at Goodwill as a good president, you learn to delegate. So I have some team members here that might take my meeting notes. There's Michelle over there, one of our VPs. Heather's in the room. Sophie's here. So I'm not sure who's going to take over my presentation in the next 5 minutes, but I found it very overwhelming yet exciting to follow these incredible speakers. So thank you so much. Oh, we'll share a little bit about my story if you don't mind, Bean. I'm going to wink at you and not get arrested for that. Very proud before Goodwill to serve as CEO of the Mikisew group of companies. Has anyone ever heard of the Mikisew Cree First Nation? Headquartered in Fort Chipewyan, Treaty 8 territory. So I spent a lot of time serving the Mikisew Cree, 10 years actually. I was the longest serving executive of non-Indigenous in their history. Very, very proud of that. I was mentored by Chief Archie Walkwin, who was born in a teepee on the Wood Buffalo National Park. Chief Archie, I still call him that. He's not chief officially anymore. When I have the pleasure of seeing Chief Archie, he mentored me for the decade that I was there. I also served under the first female Cree First Nation chief, Roxanne Marcel. I was very proud to again serve under her. The Mikisew Group of Companies was a conglomerate of 8 companies, all committed to creating employment, job creation, and career development for Mikisew Cree First Nation members in Fort Chipewyan, Edmonton, and Fort McMurray. We had 8 companies, total annual activity of about $70 million in creating, again, opportunities. At the peak of our growth when I was there, we had 700 team members, about 90% were Mikisew Cree members. So that was prior to 2012. Then I had the opportunity to join this organization, Goodwill Industries of Alberta, where I've been proud to be the president and CEO for the last 10 years, working with incredible team members, many of whom are here. We now have 800 team members across Alberta, significant percentage of whom are those with disabilities and barriers to employment. We are now one of the largest employers in Alberta, and I believe Western Canada, of people with disabilities and barriers to employment. So we'll move on to the next one, Bean, if you don't mind. What is Goodwill? Who is Goodwill? A lot of you will know of the stores. We're very proud to have operations in Grand Prairie across the capital city region, including Spruce Grove, St. Albert, Sherwood Park, and Edmonton, all the way down to Calgary. Goodwill is a partner of a number of other Goodwills around the world. There are 160 Goodwills in 17 countries. We're all independent Goodwills. We're all non-profit organizations registered in the province or state that we operate. Again, we operate in 17 countries. It's a conglomerate of 160 Goodwills who only share the name and the title. Other than that, we are based in the communities in the province or state that we exist, and we proudly serve those communities. We are, again, registered nonprofit society. Sometimes we're confused with Value Village, another organization in the thrift space. Value Village is a for-profit based out of the United States, and again, a private company. We're a nonprofit. We were founded in 1902 by Edgar J. Helms. He was a Methodist minister in Boston, and he saw an opportunity. And that opportunity was a lot of things were going to landfill that he thought could be used in a better way. Well, in 1902, it wasn't televisions and Xboxes and stuff. It was more like clothing and furniture and such. So what he did is he created a small social enterprise. That social enterprise was one of which we hired persons with barriers, just call it barriers, to mine the landfill, take it to his church and mend and repair the clothing and the furniture, and then sell all that stuff to create the money for the employment for all that activity back upstream, as we'll call it. Again, in 1902, it was pretty small, pretty straightforward, but nonetheless an opportunity, not through government help or fundraising or otherwise, through the sale of used goods to create employment for people with barriers to employment. Started off very small. 100 and some years later, we are again part of a family of Goodwills around the world in 17 countries, and we're a $7 billion a year operation, all of it invested into creating opportunities for people with disabilities and barriers. We often say through the power of work and the dignity of a job, we are changing lives for the better, strengthening families and communities. So we're very proud of that. So if we'll advance, Bean, if you don't mind. Mentioned about the number of countries we're in. Keep going. This is what many of you know to be kind of what is Goodwill. This is an example of a couple stores. And the one on your right, it says Goodwill, we put people to work. Again, we very, very much focus and exclusively focus on changing lives through the dignity of a job and the power of work. We believe you can do a lot of things for a lot of people if you give them an opportunity to get up in the morning and go to work or train through a volunteer program, and many of which that's what we do as well. It's not just employment, it's volunteer opportunities as well. So again, we're very proud of our operations here in Alberta. We're one of the largest employers of persons with disabilities here in Alberta, and we're continuing to grow, and we're very proud of that. Bean, if you don't mind. We opened in 1963, so we'll be celebrating a big anniversary next year. And again, very proud to serve in the communities that we now operate. We're the only Goodwill in Western Canada. There are no Goodwills at this time in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. There are a number in Ontario and Quebec as well, across the United States and around the world. Inspiration. Who inspires me and why do I do what I do at Goodwill? Each and every day I wake up very excited to make a difference. I have my own personal chant as I go to work. It's all about, again, making a difference. I have a goal. I have 4 performance drivers. I also have my personal values, but one of my performance drivers is to exceed the expectations of a total stranger every day. Sometimes that's first thing on the freeway, where you wave at somebody excitedly to make their day. Sometimes it's at the end of the day in an elevator in a hospital, like when I was visiting my mom a few months ago and had an opportunity to see a beautiful Indigenous jacket on a lady, and we had the opportunity to have a conversation. I won't bore you with the details, but it was an opportunity that day, at the end of my day, to exceed the expectations of a total stranger. So who inspires me? We'll throw up some names. Got a couple more. There we go. You're doing a great job. You had no clue you'd be doing this, so thank you, Bean, very much. And actually, Bean inspires me too. In addition to who's on here, Chief Archie Walkman, I wanted to appreciate Bean. The pleasure of meeting her a few years ago and touring her Operation Ryu. And I brought my daughter, Becky, and I don't know if you remember when I brought her there. Becky was in her third-year university at the University of Kansas on a sports scholarship. She had twice gone to the World Championships in softball, and that was the year she was going. She was stressed out being on Team Canada and the University of Kansas Jayhawks, the first Canadian ever recruited as a softball player to that particular program, and she was stressed beyond belief. And one of the days that I had an opportunity to take her around and try to calm her down a little bit, as her dad and such, former coach, was to go see Bean's operation, and she enjoyed it immensely. We drove away and she talked for hours. It was like 8 o'clock at night, you were closing. I'm sure till 10 or 11 o'clock she was talking about getting done university and coming and working for Bean. So she's not working for you today, but we would like to have that considered. She's actually flying this morning to Toronto for a big event that she is hosting this Thursday with her team from Calgary. She works for Canada's Sport Hall of Fame. And this Thursday they have a nationally broadcasted event taking place. And so she was inspired and calmed down through the opportunity to your organization. So I should have put your name up here too. You've heard of Michael. Michael and I are good friends. Michael is my mentor and a dear friend of mine at Goodwill. So we've talked a little bit about your story. I want to add on to that. I'm going to be careful of time here. Michael amazed me about a year and a half ago when you were practicing golf all around the windows of our front lobby. Very interesting. We have lots of big windows in our corporate office. Michael was going to Special Olympics or practicing towards in the game of golf, and he's a fantastic golfer. So here he is, if you can imagine this, with a headset on, a golf club, probably your 8-iron, because that's your favorite iron, if I recall, Michael. And he had Kleenex balls, and he was chipping onto the couch in our lobby as he was doing his work. And I thought, this is a great day in the world when a team member at Goodwill can practice to get ready to go to the Olympics and do his job all the while, taking care of business. And as I was talking to him and being excited about this, the phone rang. He says, "Excuse me, Dale, I'll be a minute." Push the button. "Good morning, Goodwill Industries of Alberta. How may I help you?" And "Yes, let me transfer you. You have an outstanding day. One moment, please." And he made the transfer off the keyboard. And I thought, I can't do that. But what a great day in an organization where a team member is practicing to go to his sport of choice, all the while being supported by an organization that does what we do. Second one is Tyrone. That's him on your left. It's a little small there. Tyrone works in Calgary. He's a donor attendant. He has worked on and off for Goodwill for a long time. He has so many challenges in life, I can't even begin to list what those challenges are. But nonetheless, every day he exceeds the expectations of wonderful donors, those people that bring in the household goods to make the magic of Goodwill take place. So that's Tyrone there. Again, no matter the day he's having, he always exceeds the expectations of a donor when it comes to the receipt of generosity. And Dee is on our right. Our right, if I turn that way. Dee's our store manager in Grand Prairie. She's an incredible leader at Goodwill. She's worked for about 6 years as our store manager in Grand Prairie. Before she worked at Goodwill, she was the general manager of Wholesale Sports. Before that, National Sporting Goods Company. I don't know if they were bought up by Cabela's or what went on there. But in Grand Prairie, she was hiring team members with disabilities at Wholesale Sports. We presented to her a very special award about 7 years ago at our big awards event in Grand Prairie, thanking her and appreciating her for being an employer of choice in the community. And after Wholesale, we went after her and got her on our team. So Dee is inspiring. She has her own unique abilities. She leads a team up there. It's an incredible operation in Grand Prairie, and it's a great example of a leader, again, navigating unique abilities and supporting those others with unique abilities and barriers as well. Next slide, if you don't mind. These are two Olympians. I spoke about Michael's journey to preparing for his activity in golf. On your right is Cheryl Bernard. She's the president and CEO of the Canada Sports Hall of Fame. She was captain or lead or skip of 2010 Team Bernard at the Olympics in Vancouver and came back to Calgary and's been inspiring people ever since then. She's an ambassador of Goodwill, and she's with Kelsey Wood. Kelsey used to work at our Chinook store in Calgary, and they, as Olympians, hammed it up at one of our events. Very special with it. This is a very special slide to me and for Goodwill as well. It's always funny to have these two talk and banter and share their stories. Cheryl always mentions that Kelsey has 6 or 7 medals, and Kelsey always reminds her 7 medals she's won at the Olympics. Cheryl said, gosh, I just won 1 silver medal at the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver. I guess I got 6 more to go. So these two are pretty neat, and they inspire me as well. Ian, if you don't mind. I'd like to share a story of Robert. It really summarizes what Goodwill stands for and what it's all about. Every year, Goodwill International selects the top achiever of the year globally. And Goodwill International 2 years ago selected Robert. Robert's story is a little hard on the heart, but it's inspiring nonetheless. And I'd like to share his story with you as a little bit of a background into the heartbeat of Goodwill and why we do what we do.
My favorite thing is cooking and baking. The baking has a touch to it. You gotta have the touch to make it come out right. I like one day own my own restaurant. That's my biggest goal, is to be someone and well respected instead of put down. And everybody at the Goodwill never once put me down. My name is Robert Frank. I'm a utility worker and a donation attendant. I've been there almost 5 years and loved every minute of it. I sweep, mop, organize. I'm good at organizing and just putting things in place. But everybody I work with at the Goodwill is very supportive with me. Yeah, reading and spelling disorder. That's all from the doctor said was from the abuse, from the damage at the back of the brain. I was badly abused growing up. I was beaten a lot because my mother could care less. She said to all of her people, I was her biggest mistake in life. Before I worked at the Goodwill, I was just like co-check person. You had to sit there for hours and so on and nothing to do. I thought I could do more. Something told me to go to the Goodwill. I didn't know what it was, but I said, let's go here and see if I get a job.
Robert came to the store looking for a job. He just showed up and asked if we were hiring. He said, and I remember this very well, he said, I will give you my all every day. I saw Robert's struggles right away. He would have to ask people how to spell words, and you can tell he was a little embarrassed.
There's only like 3 words I could read in a child book. It was cat, dog, that was it.
I typically help people with things like housing, transportation, childcare. With Robert, it was a little bit different. He really struggled with confidence, with reading, writing, and spelling.
It's very embarrassing. But I'm getting better, you know? Thanks to Miss Lauren James. Lauren would see me every week and we sat in the training room for a couple hours.
I printed out some handwriting worksheets that have the different furniture that we get here at Goodwill, and he could trace them over and over to work on his letter formations.
I said, hey, all right, I'm doing this, you know? She showed interest and wanted to help, and no one else would. She treated me with total respect and understanding. I read a book for the first time, and I never read a book my whole life.
And he read it out loud to me with no mistakes. And of course, we were both excited that he had this big milestone in his life at age 65.
Now I look forward to read things at work. I'm filling out the forms better, the price tags, you know, you have to write the words on and the prices.
Now when I talked to him, he said two of his favorite new words were magnificent and stupendous. He would never say such positive words when I first met him. By building the confidence, even in just reading and writing, it's really had a positive impact on the rest of his life.
Well, I just tell Robert often that if anyone else has been through what he's been through with his past, they would have quit long ago. Like, he is so strong and he is so determined. All he really has is his Goodwill family, so he's just strong.
When you're there, this is like one big family, and it's such a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Once you're a nobody, then to become somebody, that's an amazing feeling to have.
Of course, it chokes me up. I love what Robert says, that once you were a nobody and then become a somebody, it's a very special time. We are all inspired by Robert. The mighty Quinn permits us to say the word ass, and work your ass off. She led with it, so I guess I can say it. Robert and all the Roberts Goodwill supports and creates opportunities for is why we work our asses off at Goodwill. Couple slides to go, and then look forward to a conclusion to wrap up this wonderful morning. Again, I feel so inspired yet overwhelmed to be following Erin, the mighty Quinn, and Bean. Bean, you mentioned that you were Grumpy Bean? No, Mean Bean. Mean Bean. I don't know if any of you go to 7-Eleven when you're a little tired driving home like I was from BC last night, but I went and got my favorite little energy coffee drink. It's called a Mean Bean. And now I heard today that there is actually a real Mean Bean. So I've pulled my little marker out. If you go to 7-Eleven or any other convenience store in the next couple of weeks, and you go up there and take one of those Mean Beans, I think it's with the M on it, whatever brand that is, what's it called, that choice of drink with the M, doesn't matter. But all the Mean Beans are going to have Friendly Bean with this marker stroked out on there. So if you get a Friendly Bean at 7-Eleven, you know I've been there within 24 hours of you being there. So wanted to end with what I call the heartbeat of Goodwill. Career connections, Goodwill at work, the whole mission development side of Goodwill. I know we have operations team members here from all of our stores. I get that. And every time I call the career connections and the mission impact portfolio, the heartbeat of Goodwill, I hear after. Well, the stores and all that are the fuel and the engine to what we do. The heartbeat of Goodwill is this team here. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what we do there. Our head office is headquartered here on White Avenue, just a few blocks away, second floor of our store. If you ever want to go and have a great shower of joy, you look up the team at Career Connections. Many of those wonderful team members are here today. Go to White Avenue, go to that store. Some of the statistics here in terms of the impact the heartbeat of Goodwill makes each and every day. And it'll segue into something we're very excited to announce in a second. We're CARF certified. We've won a number of awards for tremendous opportunities that are being created for people with unique abilities and barriers. And the Career Connections team is a big part of that. And again, what I call the heartbeat of Goodwill. Bean, if you don't mind, the next one. Commercial services is part of this incredible portfolio of Goodwill called Mission Impact. Our manager is over here. I think I saw him earlier. Lucas is right there. Lucas leads a team of now 32 or 33 team members with disabilities. We work with companies around the capital city region, including Suncor, Nedcor, and all the other ores. I don't know if I'm putting ores onto those, Lucas. We partner with Hughes Car Wash for wiper claws. We partner with the co-op grocery stores and gas bars to create cleaning cloths out of towels that didn't sell at Goodwill. We are now very proud of our 90% waste diversion rate. We are the top Goodwill in Canada for waste diversion. Mortimer, our Director of Sustainability and Innovation, is the big driver behind that. He's been with us almost 5 years and really reinventing how we do things at Goodwill. Yes, we change lives through the dignity of a job and the power of work, but we're one of the most high-performance environmental organizations in Alberta. Now in the capital city region, 90% waste diversion, 87% or so in Calgary, and when we open our amazing Calgary Impact Center in a couple months, we'll get to that 90%. So again, we partner with many organizations through Lucas's team to create opportunities for a number of team members with disabilities in creating electrical conduits for eventual end user TELUS Corporation. We create wiper cloths, cleaning cloths, candles, solar panels we're putting together, and our big partner in the last couple of years has been Suncor Energy as we assemble bolt kits for that incredible company. So that's Goodwill at work. And this is the announcement. Oh, Bean, I was going to leave. No, I'm just kidding. Here we go. Heather, if she was here, she'd do a much better job of this. Our Vice President of Mission Impact, she wrote the proposal, and it was accepted. Heather, everybody's pointing at you. There you are, right on. Heather, as I've proudly said in the last 10 years, we've always had a leader at Goodwill overseeing our mission team. And it's always been a leader that let those team members excel, the job coaches, the job development specialists, and all the others. And that was a maintenance job. Let them exceed expectations. Let them help us partner with community organizations and otherwise. This is the first leader at Mission Impact. We actually named the portfolio, renamed it, who's building opportunities in addition to supporting wonderful team members in career connections from Spruce Grove to St. Albert and everywhere in between. We're proud to announce what's on screen now. It'll kick off in November. We've gained a tremendous contract opportunity through our partner with the province of Alberta. It's called the Employee Inclusion Accelerator. We will hire dedicated team members to go out and work with caring community companies in the community to learn about the opportunity to hire persons with disabilities. We've done it for years in terms of disability awareness training and stuff. We will now hire up to 6 dedicated team members that will go out and work with companies to create a pathway to employment and a pathway to success, teaching and encouraging and mentoring these wonderful corporations to hire team members with disabilities. So we're very proud to announce today we've recently got that contract. 6 hirings will take place. I think, Heather, I hope that's the number I'm supposed to use. It's called the Employee Inclusion Accelerator. Very, very excited for this project. Thank you and congratulations to Heather who delivered that opportunity. So, Bean, if you don't mind, if there's another one to go, there's her contact information. And a couple closing statements in terms of the belief at Goodwill for the work we have the pride and opportunity and honor of doing on behalf of Albertans with barriers and persons with disabilities. Bean, was there another one after that? All right, I think that's the final one, if I'm correct. We'll hold it on that one. It really speaks a lot to what we're doing at Goodwill in partnership with many of you. I'd like to thank our speakers. Doug will be doing that. I'd also like to close with that this was the very stage that another president and CEO inspired me. I think that was your CEO, Michelle, a number of years ago. Dave Mowat. Has anyone heard of Dave Mowat, the former president and CEO of ATB Financial? First of all, ATB Financial is an incredible bank. That's our bank. We're very proud to be a partner of ATB as they help us build incredible opportunities. It was in this room at a stakeholder consultation about 7 years ago where Dave was on stage and he was being interviewed by the CFO at the time. I can't remember who that was. And it was like a David Letterman chat. And this room was full. And I was here, very, very proud lifetime ATB personal customer. And we had transitioned to ATB, so I was in this room and listening to Dave Mowat, who I think is an incredible leader. And he was being interviewed. And about 2 or 3 minutes into the discussion, the CFO asked him a question, and Dave said, who made that stupid decision? And I thought, ooh, that was pretty gutsy with a room full of bankers and business leaders. And from the very back row, a young man yelled out, Dave, that was your stupid idea. And I thought, wow, I don't know about many banks, but you call the CEO that, you mentioned it's his stupid idea? And Dave said, oh, Cody, thank you very much. Yes, that was my stupid idea. And on again, and about 2 minutes later, the same thing. Well, who made that silly decision? And that was you again, Dave, 2 for 2. And who Cody was Dave's strategic advisor. I don't know if you ever heard of the story of Cody and Dave. Cody was teamed up with Dave through Inclusion Alberta, a tremendous organization across Alberta that supports persons with disabilities. And Cody had unique abilities. Cody was Dave's unofficial strategic advisor. And for many a time, and Dave spoke at his retirement about how Cody helped him make some pretty tough decisions where they'd sit in the office and he'd say, Cody, if it was up to you, what would you do? And Cody often would say, number one, don't listen to any of your advisors. Go with your gut, Dave. Go with your heart. If your gut and your heart are aligned, everything will work out. And to this day, Dave always speaks about Cody with unique abilities coming from Inclusion Alberta as being a very special friend of his and mentor. And again, to me, Dave Mowat is a big person who I've looked up to as a CEO for Better Tomorrows. And it was right here in this theater 7 years ago on this very stage that my heart was ignited and excited based on Cody's story with Dave. So thank you to our speakers. I close with my favorite quote. Achieving perfection is impossible, but in chasing perfection, we catch excellence in changing lives for the better through the dignity of a job and the power of work. Thank you for this morning.
Thank you, Dale. Don't go too far. Don't go too far. I'm going to put you on the spot. I threw you off just before you came up here. You did not expect that, so am I fired?
No, you're promoted. That was a good move.
No, but we had Michael come up here to introduce you for a reason, not only because he's the vice president of First Impressions at Goodwill. He's also a Special Olympian golfer, but his dream is also to become CEO. He wants to help his ability in speaking in front of people like yourself. So thank you for enjoying his performance here today. Why do these people inspire you, Dale?
Well, I think as Quinn showed us through food, especially, that if you put a number of layers together, it makes an incredible cupcake, especially with a cherry on top. She taught us through her presentation that no matter your unique abilities, no matter what life has dealt you, you have a choice. You take the negative or you take the positive in terms of a route. And I believe at Goodwill, why I go to work, why I get so excited and ignited every day, is the opportunity every day to make a profound difference in the life of somebody. I didn't know that, first impression, your way, Michael, was one that it was, where I came out and really was interested in getting to know you, but I didn't know that was a moving moment. CEOs are nothing more than just a title, and we're all equal on earth in terms of our opportunity to make a difference. One of my 4 personal performance drivers is to exceed the expectations of a total stranger every day. Well, through my work, I believe I'm attempting to do that along with a lot of incredible Goodwillians here and across Alberta, that we can every day make such a difference.
We had some tremendous speakers up on stage. What's your takeaways from today?
From all of them, I have my list over there. I put it down. I actually had 6 or 7. A takeaway for me is just a reaffirmation of that we're all one people. This is an incredible world. Yes, there's evil and negativity and all that jazz. That's the 3% factor. If we focus on the 97% of people who are wonderful, all looking for a day to smile and to enjoy life, friends, family, and otherwise, the focus on the positivity is my takeaway, and the ability to make a profound difference by just caring.
Ladies and gentlemen, President and CEO of Goodwill Industries of Alberta, Dale Monaghan.
Thank you.
We're really proud to help support this event with DEAM. For those who don't know what DEAM is, it's Disability Employment Awareness Month. They kicked it off yesterday in Calgary, and we're kicking it off today here in Edmonton.
Our goal is really to make sure that people have that minimum level of support that they need to kind of grow from, and really, especially on the employment side, help people get to where they can be part of their community, have more self-sufficiency to what they're able, and we are very passionate about that work.
I did have my life flipped upside down. There's going to be fastballs thrown at you that's going to make you adapt and change, and as humans, that's what we do. When I started being grateful for what I had, instead of being sad about what I lost, my whole world changed. The universe opened up its doors, led me to meet all the right people that I needed to meet in order to get REU Paralysis Recovery Center off the ground. And within the 5 years that we've been open, we have changed the lives of literally hundreds of Albertans living with disabilities.
For those of us with a disability, or especially those with suddenly having a disability, life is bitter because that's how we view it. Suddenly, I smelled something. My favorite food. But life could be great if you bite into that favorite food. Take a smell again. Imagine a life as your favorite food. In 2006, I became the first quadriplegic in Canada to earn a Bachelor of Education degree specializing in elementary because my favorite food smelled so good.
How do we create an inclusive space for everyone? I want us to maybe think about using the acronym IDEA, Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility, because I have also witnessed in the last few years the hierarchy within what we've called the DEI space, the D&I space. It's gone through a lot of changes, but accessibility doesn't always make the list. How do you lead with heart every single day? How do you have clumsy conversations? And think about a day in your life and where are there opportunities for change.
We very much focus and exclusively focus on changing lives through the dignity of a job and the power of work. We've gained a tremendous contract opportunity through our partner with the province of Alberta. It's called the Employee Inclusion Accelerator. We will now hire up to 6 dedicated team members that will go out and work with companies, teaching and encouraging and mentoring these wonderful corporations to hire team members with disabilities. So we're very excited for this project. Thank you and congratulations to Heather, who delivered that opportunity.